Well, that was weird. All of a sudden, just started recording. So, hey, Rob, I thought I would give you a video while I was thinking about it. I had a little bit of time to kill. I had actually planned on doing a few other things, but we decided to go see some family down in Georgia and go get see my side of the family as well. So, anyway, so we were talking about the options on the pedal. Okay, and you want me to explain it a little bit. So what I thought I'd do is this: if we look at it right now as a two knob and a switch, kind of like your tube screamer setup, but instead of a tone knob, we have a clipping switch. Anytime the switch is engaged, it's going to need a little more output because it's going to drop the voltage down. When you clip your signal, you're trying to mimic what a tube amp does, but it also clamps down the threshold. Basically, it acts kind of like a limiter almost. So if you got a wave this big going through and you flip it, it's going to take it down to like this. We're using a bicolor LED, so the maximum signal we can get, end to end, is about 4 volts. Whereas without it clipping, it can swing up to about 8 volts, which is what the battery has. So in other words, it kind of halves the amount of drive voltage. Okay. Now, to answer your question, see right now we have a pre-gain and kind of a volume. So we have one circuit here. There's a fixed amount of gain, but it has a volume coming out of it. In between that gain and the volume is the diode clip switch. So see, the diode clip always gets the maximum amount of signal from the gain. So whenever it's involved, always the maximum signal. This volume here doesn't matter on the gain part of it, because this volume only controls when it goes into this stage over here, and then this stage has a master volume on it. Okay, so this stage is nothing more than a buffer. It offers no gain, but it keeps from loading down the signal, just like a regular guitar pot when you turn it down. So this one here is just the original pedal, gain into the volume, and then it goes into the buffer. The buffer is just keeping it from overdriving the next stage. It gives us one extra stage to control it. Now, what I was suggesting is that we could use two pots and a push-pull switch. So to keep it a little cleaner, it does cost a little more. If we buy them in bulk, we can get them down to, I think, about $3 a piece for the pot slash switch. And of course, it gives us the luxury of being able to just pull that out, and then they can adjust the volume accordingly. Or we could do one volume on a dual gained pot. Now, here's the thing about dual gained pot. I actually have one here. Here it is. In case you've never seen one, okay? So what happens is these wafers are set the exact same way. So let's just assume you had one pot, then it'd look like that. And depending on how you wire these right here, these three here, you wire like an in, out, and ground, okay? So the easiest way to do that is then the pot functions like a normal volume pot, okay? Now what I was proposing is we wire them up inversely to each other, so that if you wanted to do the old tube screamer trick where you turn the gain all the way down and the volume all the way up, all you would have to do is turn this knob all the way down. It would maximize the volume and minimize the amount of gain, like I did in the video. But instead of two knobs, it'd be one. And the way we do that is where normally this is your ground output, and this one right here. Let me get a pointer device. It actually probably be a little bit easier. Normally, this one right here is ground. The middle one is output, and this is your input. If we were wanting two devices to change the volume exactly the same, then we would wire both of these the same. So that would be ground, that would be output, and that would be input. But if we want them to move opposite of each other, then obviously we switch this. So this one will be ground, output, and volume. Ground, output, volume. So they're inversely. The problem with that is this. At the extreme rotation of 100% or 0%, you will not get signal out of either because it is officially grounding out one of them. Now here's the trick, okay? If we wanted to bypass that, instead of having the ground here, what we would do is we would take a 10K or maybe a 20K resistor and we would run it through here to the ground of the chassis. Same way with over here. And what that effectively would do is, let's say that we're using a potentiometer that is 100K. What that would effectively do is turn that into a 120K potentiometer. In the grand schemes of that, 20K is not that big of a deal. However, it keeps us from totally grounding out the signal. So in this case, then, let's just say 20K, and let's just say for the math's sake, so, it's 1/6 of the pot's rotation. So that means that everything's broken up into 6 degrees minimum, maximum. So at 100% on one would be 20% gain of the other. So see, it can never truly reach the bottom of the scope. So if you turn the volume all the way up, or in this case, when I say volume, I mean the knob, what this would do is this would spin this control for the output volume all the way to the max. 120K, boom, running it out. This one would spin to the minimum, but because we have a 20K resistor there, it would be put the gain at 20K. So it would be basically like pre-wiring that trick in with a tube screamer style trick, gain down, volume up. Now, on the reverse of that, if you want, as you increase the gain, you lower the overall output volume. So you get a blending of it. And of course, the switch itself will not have any real difference in that. You would just have to turn it up a little to compensate. The only caveat is during, with the switch in operation, some people that are tweakers might not like exactly how that's done. But then again, if they're that good at knowing what they like, they can build their own pedal. I can leave the LEDs in the circuit at all times, and it does not have to be switchable. The difference is, part of the signal magic of this thing is this basically is 2 pedals in one when you add in the diode clipper. Without the diode clipper, it's just raw volume, and the chip itself is distorting slightly. And it's going into, pushing that envelope, down the chain, and just pushing everything, making it hot, That does tend to sound fat and organic and juicy, and just everything that we love. Can be a little noisy, and it does tend to make the bottom a little flabby. But when you click in the diodes, you get excess high end, which I've limited on how much high end on when the diode clipper's in. And it's basically exactly just, like most other pedals, that you put 0.001 microfarad capacitor in there. And just limits the shrill harmonics given by the clipping circuit. It is hard clipping, but it's LEDs, so it's not as noticeable. It's also asymmetrical, but only by a little bit. Just enough to make it noticeable. And it does tighten up the bottom end as you put more gain into it. So that's the options, basically. And I am experimenting actually with another one. I'll put that in a different video.